There are a number of applications for a medium power GMRS repeater. The Retevis RT97L is a reasonably priced device that's simple to use in both semi-permanent and portable settings. Let's take a look. In this Gadget Talk video, we're going to take a look at the latest version of the Retevis RT97 portable GMRS repeater. It's the RT97L. The RT97L is an all-in-one GMRS repeater that Retevis says has up to 25 watts of power output. We'll talk more about that in a minute, but there are some caveats to that claim. It's also IP66 rated, which means it can take the impact of weather when mounted outdoors. With features like high and low temperature protections, the repeater can take care of itself when outdoors in a wide range of temperature situations. The RT97L weighs in at just under 8 pounds, so it's light enough to set up at your campsite or hunting lease, but robust enough to mount on your home or an outbuilding on a farm or a ranch. You can power the RT97L with the included 15-volt output AC power brick or with a 12-volt style accessory plug from a solar generator or vehicle accessory port. The specs state that the desired operating voltage is 15 volts, but they also state that the device will work within the range of 12 to 24 volts. We'll take a look at the power output on a power meter in a second, but now is probably a good time to address the caveat I mentioned earlier. The 22 to 25 watt output Retevis marketing materials refer to is the output from the transmitter stage of the device. If you look at the technical specs as shown here, you'll notice that they say that after passing through the duplexer, the power will be 15 to 22 watts. My guess is you can expect higher outputs if using closer to 24 volts and a bit lower if using outputs of 12 volts. As you can see in this clip, I got a reading of 13 watts on my power meter when using the included AC power source. So let's look at the power output. I've got this plugged into my MFJ874. I'm using the 20 watt arc, so we'll be reading that in the second arc from the bottom. And I just got it on repeater channel 1, and we're powering the device with the 15 volt output from the AC adapter that comes with it. So let's take a quick look and see what kind of power output we get from the repeater here on repeater channel 1. Okay, so that looked like about 13 watts or so, which is not bad. It's certainly not the 25 watts. I think a lot of the power output numbers that where you see bannered about here with this has to do with voltage. As you know, the power output has a component of voltage in its computation, and the repeater will take up to 24 volts. So I suspect that if you were powering this from a 24 volt battery or with a 24 volt solar system of some kind, you would end up with a little bit higher voltage. But 15 volt is the nominal voltage for the device. 15 is what the output from the little power brick is, and at that point you're getting 13 or 14 watts of power from the repeater. Before we go any further, I need to let you know that Retevis supplied the repeater for this review. The review is my own, and they don't get to see it until I upload it to YouTube. I do my best to call the balls and strikes the way I see them. Additionally, if you're finding this video helpful, please click the thumbs up button below the video and subscribe to the Gadget Talk channel if you haven't already. There's also a join button to learn more about becoming a channel member and a thanks button to make a one-time contribution. I really appreciate it. As these photos show, the repeater came very well packed. The repeater itself was well protected in foam packing material, and the accessories were firmly placed within the box. Now, let's take a look at what comes with the RT97L. First thing we'll look at is the owner's manual, and it's labeled here. There's really not a lot to it, and it's in a couple different languages, so it's really only half the size. Primarily, it's because there's not a lot you need to do. The stuff in the CPS is pretty self-explanatory, and so we've got the owner's manual here. It identifies what the various connectors are. It identifies what the various characters are on the screen, gives you a description of where various things are, and then a list of the things here in terms of the basic operations. Here are the 8 things that we'll look at in the Power On tour. Those are the only things that you're going to access via the menu button on the radio. Some of these things are available, but they're available with the computer programming or the customer programming software. So that's what it looks like. Here are the frequencies. The first 8 are high. The second 8, which are the same set of frequencies, are narrow, wide, and narrow. They're all on high power. And then here are the CT, CSS, and DCS codes listed there. So before we look at the repeater, let's look at some of the accessories that come with the repeater, and we're going to need those to make it work. First, we've got the power brick, and this is AC. It's got a US plug here for 120 volts. It plugs in, and this brick outputs 15 volts. So that's a couple of volts higher than what you might get from a vehicle or from a battery. But 15 is the nominal volts. It'll work with less, and then it'll work with up to 24 volts, which means that the power that we see in the power clip will vary depending upon the voltage going into the device. So this is our power. Notice it's got a little screw-in plug here, and that goes into this side of the repeater. And speaking of 12 volts, we've got the 12 volt accessory here. It's got the 12 volt accessory type plug here on one end, and then the same screw on that goes into the side of the repeater here. And so you could use this in a solar generator or in an accessory port on your car if you have it mounted like for a 5K or a 10K run that you're just doing a portable operation for. And so that's the battery power. Of course, it would also work if you set it up to be in a battery with solar power. That would also use this plug. Now realize that the main voltage out of the brick is 15 volts. This would be 12 volts or so, maybe 13. And so the output of power, depending on how you power this device, is going to change because the input voltage has to do with the output available. And the specs say that this will take up to 24 volts. So this is the 12 volt input for powering the repeater. So the next thing is the programming cable. The programming cable has a USB-A on one end with the chip that plugs into your computer, and then a little mini 9-pin connector here that screws into the side of the repeater. That same socket can be used to screw in other accessories. For example, if you're big into using Pi-Star for control, you could put a Pi-Star adapter in there. And then there's some third-party adapters that might play an ID. And then, of course, the microphone uses this kind of a connector as well. So I'm not using the microphone, so this would be what I would have plugged into it, and otherwise the plug would go unused. The last thing we'll look at here is it also comes with some mounting hardware. These are a couple of brackets with machine screws that will mount these to the side of the repeater case itself, and then these are just the usual wood screws with plastic expanders if you wanted to mount them into a wall of some kind. Remember, the repeater is IP66 protected, so mounting it outside is certainly an option, and these would be the hardware items you would use to do that. So here's a quick power off tour of the Retevis RT97L. This is a metal case. It's got the ridges on it for heat sink capability. It's screwed in tight. It's not something you're going to pop open. I'm not going to open it, but we've got the receivers in there and a duplexer in there. On the top here, we've got a leather strap to carry it. We've got the screen up and down and the menu button, and the combination of these buttons, as we'll see in a moment, allows you to do the limited amount of programming that you'll need to get this thing to run. On this side, and this thing is heavy, I'll tell you, the case is heavy and whatever's inside is also heavy. And so we've got the outside here. Here's the connection for that programming cable or the microphone that I showed you. Here's the power connector right here. If we go to the other side, we can see here we've got a little cover for the SO2 239 connector or UHF connector here. The serial number is right there. And then on the back is nothing, just more ridges to allow for the heat dissipation. Now, let's power the repeater on and take a look at the screen display and menu system. So here you can see we've got the radio powered on, the repeater powered on. I'm using that AC connector with 15 volts. I've got it screwed in here. And then you can see the display here, I hope. Let's see if I can just zoom in on that now that you have an idea of what this whole thing looks like. And with any luck, that's a little bit better for you to see. Now you can control some of the functions of the radio from this plate using the up and down and the menus. Some of the things like setting bandwidth and CTC or DCS codes, that has to be done in the programming software, which we'll take a look at here in a few minutes. So we begin by just looking at the screen. We can see what the status is on the power. We've got high power, wide mode, CTCSS code set. I'm on channel 1. That would be repeater channel R15 or channel 23, I believe. The frequencies are right there. One more thing in the display, I've got a little GMRS radio here. I don't have an antenna connected, so I'm just going to flash this on, but you can see transmit and receive come on down there in the lower part of the screen when it's being used. So take a look at that just real quick. There's transmit and receive. So let's look at the menu. You should go by going into the menu, and you can scroll using E up and down. The channel lock allows you to lock the radio channel in. Volume sits there. Go down again. Channel scans. We can go in there by pressing menu, and you have scan off or on. I'm going to leave it off, and I'm just going to wait for it to expire. There we go. We'll go down to function set. We can set the backlight. Right now I've got it set to on, so it isn't dropping on and off while I'm recording, but it will has adjustability from 1 second to like 15 seconds. I don't remember exactly what that was, but you can certainly do that in function set. It's got low temperature. Here in Arizona, I don't have to worry about that, but if you had it up on a mountaintop, you could set it to protect itself from low temperature. The audio gives you a plus or minus on the, from I think like 1 to 9 or so on that. And then the modem set allows you to change the gain on the modem, and that is, you can see, is in decibels. So that's in the function set. In the system set, you can basically do a factory reset on it, or you can look and see what the software version is. And in this case, it's version 1.2, which is the latest. That one fixed a couple of bugs that some people complained about in the 1.1 version of the software. And so there's really not a lot that you can do here in the menus. Most of it's going to happen in the CPS. The buttons themselves, when it's in standby mode like this, an up button allows you to change the volume. And of course, the down is going to do the same thing. I've got the radio set for channel 1. I did that in the computer programming software. And so that's it. That's really all there is to it at this point. Some of the settings you'll want to adjust are only accessible in the CPS or customer programming software. Here's a quick snapshot of the CPS. So here's the CPS for the RT97L. It's pretty typical of the Retevis CPS. On the file with these drop-down menus, file, open, close, edit gives you channel and option information, programming gives you read and write, set allows you to set the communication port, and then a help about. So we're going to start by setting the communications port. It comes up here, and I've got it set to COM4, which I've looked at my device manager, and I know that's what it comes up with. You can also do that with this gear icon. Many of these icons duplicate what's here. Now there's only the 8 channels here with our various repeater channels 1 through 8 here are the frequencies. You can see there's 2 sets of them. And so if you wanted to make some changes here, these, for example, as it comes out of the box, are all set to narrow. Here in the US, we use wide. And so this is what we have. And to make changes, we'll just change in the box. And so I'm going to change these to no CTCSS. And then on channel 1, I'm going to change it using the drop-down box to 67. So that makes it easy. If someone has a radio with them, I don't have to scroll through a bunch of CTCSS channels to get the radio set for that. And on second thought, I'm just going to leave these, and I'll just plan to use the repeater as channel 1. Obviously, if you were using the repeater in an area with several repeaters, you'd want to find an open frequency and then pick a CTCSS so that you didn't trip both repeaters at the same time. And so the encode is 67 and the decode is 67. I don't want to send one on decode. And so output for the repeater is going to be off, and then the decode from what goes into the repeater is going to be 67. And so that's what I've got here. And I'm just going to leave it at that. The other thing in our edits, we can go to optional features, and there's not many of them either because it's just a very simple device. So I've got the squelch at 2, volume at 8, audio mic gain set to 0. I don't have a mic that I'm going to plug into this. I'm not going to scan. I've got it set to channel 1. Channel lock is manual, and so forth. Now, I'm not going to turn on the low temperature here in Arizona. I don't have to worry about that. You might have to. And then the other things here, the language and so forth. And so that's what I've got here for my optional features. So with this all done now, I'm going to take my file, I'm going to save it. I'm going to put it in a file that I have set up on my computer with the RT97L, and then I'm going to give it a name. I use the date, so I use 2025 05 30. The 30th of May is when I'm recording this. And so it's a text file with this information. I'm going to save it. And then now at this point, I'm going to write it to the repeater itself. So I'm going to press the right button. And there it wrote. It took only a second for it to write. And I've got that minor change made here to the repeater. So it'll now, when I turn it on, it'll come up on channel 1 with that 67 CTCSS. So that's a quick snapshot of the CPS for the RT97L.
As I mentioned earlier, the RT97L can be set up at your home, your business, or farm or ranch. It can also be set up as an ad hoc repeater to support things like a community 5K or 10K run or other similar activity. In this clip, I've set it up at a recent camping trip. The antenna is a flexible J-pole connected to my RV's flagpole, and the repeater is powered by a small solar generator. To have it on all the time, I'll need a better power source, but I'll have it available when someone is away from the campsite. This small power source will work just fine. Note, I've got solar panels connected to the power source to slow down the net power loss.
So here's a quick look at the RT97L set up at the back of my RV when I use it as a repeater when I'm out camping. You see we've got the power on there, I've got the channels selected and all that. And I've got this really handy opening in the back of my RV, so you can see that I've got a little solar generator here. It's an Anchor C300 DC, I think is the model, and you can see I've powered the Retevis from the accessory plug. I've also got a Starlink Mini powered here, and then the other line going into it is the solar panels that are charging it. And so let me take a stop here just real quick and put this in so you can see what it looks like when it's not just sitting on the bumper. So here it is. It's protected. It's in the shade, and all the wires are hooked up as I just described to you. I've got the antenna going up, and it's going to a rollout kind of J-pole antenna up on my flagpole, and so that's the plan to use for that. I think I'm going to order one of Ed Fong's roll-up GMRS tuned J-poles that I can just clip to the flagpole. It's a fiberglass flagpole, so the antenna and the flagpole ought not to interact. But this is as easy as it gets. You just plug it in, connect the antenna, set the channel, and you're ready to go. Let's wrap this up with a brief discussion on price. As I record this, the RT97L is listed for $535 with free shipping. Obviously, depending on when you see this video, that can change. There's another similar device out there with a lower power rating that's a bit less. Putting together a homebrew repeater with a similar power output using a pair of mobile radios that allow you to set them up in repeater mode and connect them, plus adding a duplexer will set you back about $1,000, not counting the antenna and the IP66 protection. If you're really after a club repeater or heavy-duty repeater for community use, you'll be looking at quite a bit more. All that being said, the RT97L offers mid-range power in a compact form that's a good value for those who need a repeater to extend the range of their GMRS radios. I've been struggling to find something to complain about with the RT97L. About the only thing, and this is trivial, is the CTCSS or DCS codes have to be set in the CPS. Now, keep in mind this is a repeater, so having to change them is a seldom if ever kind of task. If you're viewing this before the end of June 2025, check out the Retevis Amazon store group on Facebook. They've got some activities and drawings planned over there. So, is the RT97L for everyone? No, of course not. However, if you're looking for some expanded coverage for your GMRS radios, whether in the neighborhood, your farm, or camping or hunting site, the RT97L will meet the need for many of you. As always, please like the video and subscribe to the Gadget Talk channel. Join me over here for another video I think you'll like. Thanks for watching.